What I'm really excited about in terms of this exploration is I believe the conversation about money in our culture is a hidden conversation. And yet my experience both personally in my life as well as a business coach is that money conversations and belief have the tightest hold on us.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. It's certainly a very powerful, because it's such a primal resource that it's required for survival. It's survival related, actually, and therefore hugely important and hugely tied up in every other aspect of life, whether we know it or not.
In this conversation, I think we're both saying it's a sense that prosperity starts from the inside and then it's manifested on the outside. And my path was very much starting on the outside and discovering that until I connected to what that was on the inside, that it was really pointless on how I was living and what I was living like. Grooves or patterns, or as we would say in neuroscience, the neural pathways were actually going to predict a very similar future to my past if I didn't do something to change the momentum.
It didn't occur to me that there was any option other than what was playing out. So when you think there's no option, that's just the way it is, then you don't realize that all you're doing is recreating the past and the future, maybe a slightly different color, but not. I've always had, interestingly enough in my life, just enough to do the things I really wanted to do, and nothing more than that. And that somehow seems to be my karma, that there's not a lot of wealth amassing behind me. I'm not the Bill Gates person. Or, my partner that I mentioned was working. We made exactly the same amount of money as a professional, and we shared expenses equally, so there wasn't any inequality that way. And yet, he always had a huge amount of savings, and I never had any. I couldn't figure it out.
Isn't that interesting?
He, no matter what he did, and he was not stingy. I mean, he had piles of. He was really into music. He had thousands of albums, and just so much stereo equipment. I was terrified to even approach it because he couldn't figure out how to work anything. He had stacks of electronic equipment and walls full of music and all of this. I mean, he spent money, as far as I could tell. I had nothing to show for mine, and I didn't have any, and I couldn't get it. I didn't have a fancy car. We both had, comparable vehicles. We split all the household expenses equally. We didn't have any debt. Where was the hole in that? I had no money, and he had all kinds of money. I could not understand. I still don't understand.
So, part of what I'm really excited to share is as we talk about the concept of sufficiency and how do we cultivate practices in our daily life that builds that muscle that